Hey, Jeff from Knock here. Welcome back to our series on using the Knock MCP server to build your notification features. In this video, we'll go from a product requirements doc to a cross-channel workflow in a single prompt. Workflows in Knock are the primary way to power transactional messaging from events in your product, so this feature can save you a ton of time. We'll take a look at the different workflow tools the MCP server exposes, how to create workflows from a prompt, and then we'll look at how to use those workflows with the MCP server or in your codebase. This tutorial assumes you've already configured the Knock MCP server, so if you haven't done that yet, check out part 1 in this series. So let's get started. Okay, so let's pick up where we left off in the last video. I'm going to pretend I'm an engineer on the team at Collab.io, and I've been tasked with creating a new workflow that runs whenever we create a new user. So let's think about how we can use the Knock MCP server to help me accelerate my development of this feature. The first thing I'm going to do is check the tools reference to see what is available to me. So under the developers tab, and if we open up the agent toolkit section and scroll down to tools reference, we list all of the available workflow specific tools there. You can see under workflows that we have most of the basic CRUD operations, so we can list, get, and create, as well as trigger or create scheduled workflows. If we look at the workflow steps, we support a subset of all of the function and channel steps that you might find in Knock. So in terms of channels, we have emails, in-app, push, SMS, and chat. But then for functions right now, we only support creating delays and batches directly from the MCP server. Now, it's also important to call out that at the time of this recording, all of these tools are create only, so not update. So they're really good at helping you scaffold out an initial workflow, but we don't yet support being able to update individual workflows or workflow steps from the MCP server just yet. So now that we've taken a look at the tools that are available to us, let's switch gears and take a look at our product requirement doc and hop into Cursor to start scaffolding out this workflow. Now that I have Cursor open, I have my create new user server action open as well. And this is where I actually create a new user and identify that user in Knock. This is also where, once we're done, we'll trigger our create new user workflow to notify the user about their new account and all of those details. But I also have this product requirements doc that I created ahead of time that just sort of lays out what it is this workflow should do. And this is going to become the basis for our prompt when we're using the MCP server. So basically what we're going to do here is when a new user is created, right now we don't send them any emails from Collab.io, but we should obviously have some sort of new user flow to prompt the user to explore their account and maybe premium features, do things like set their notification preferences. So that's what we're going to do here. And I've also spelled out how I want this workflow to function. So we're going to create a workflow called new user created. And then I've also broken apart each step in language that the MCP server should be able to translate into tool calls using those workflow and workflow step tools we looked at in the first part of this video. So when the user signs up, they're going to get an immediate email, and that email should have, a button that links back to the dashboard and some text about their account. Then we're going to delay for 6 hours. And then after that delay, we can generate an in-app feed message for them, just reminding them to update their notification preferences. And then we'll delay again for 30 hours before we send one other follow-up email, just reminding them about the benefits of Collab.io and again, providing them a way back into their account in case they haven't logged back in yet. Now, I've also specified that all of these emails should use Knock markdown blocks for the text and button blocks for the CTA links so that they inherit my branding that I've set at the account level. The email templates should be customized for the user and use casual but professional language. Okay, so let's go ahead and copy this now. And I'm going to copy just about this part of the prompt. And then what we'll do is come over into the Cursor agent chat and we can begin constructing our prompt. So we'll start with something like, I want to create a new Knock workflow. Here are some details about that workflow. And then we can just we'll space down and paste the rest of our prompt. And so that's the advice that I would give to everybody getting started with MCP servers. A lot of this is about prompting and about really understanding the end result that you want the models to produce for you so that they can translate that into tool calls. And so the more specific and detailed you can be in your prompt about what you want the output to look like, the better your first shot is going to be at creating this resource. So let's go ahead and fire off this prompt, and hopefully Cursor will recognize the tools that we need to call and produce that workflow for us. So first it's going to call the create workflow tool. And if we open this up, we can see what that's doing. So we're passing in the new user created key, a name, a description, and then it's also auto selected some categories for us. So we'll go ahead and let that tool call run. And then it should start to break apart my prompt into individual steps and call those individual create email, create in-app steps for us. So the first one is obviously to create an email. And it's probably easier for us to preview what that's like once this is all done. So now we're on to the delay, which it recognized that we need to delay for 6 hours. Then we'll send our in-app step. So we'll go ahead and create that step as well. And then we'll add our second delay. And finally, we should create one last follow-up email for the user. Cool. We'll run that last tool call, and then we can hop back into Knock. Oh, amazing. And it actually looks like Cursor recognized that we had this file open. And so it just went ahead and realized, hey, I might want to trigger this workflow in this open file. So that is also part of the cool thing about working with these LLMs is they're non-deterministic. I absolutely did not expect that to happen, but it's a great result and obviously saves me time. So I'm going to go ahead and accept its suggestion here. Okay, great. All right. So now that we've done that, let's hop back into Google Chrome. And if we refresh our workflow list, we can see this new user created workflow here. And let's go ahead and break that apart. So I'm going to click in and we can edit some of these steps. We've already got a user selected. And so I'm just going to go ahead and close this pane out so that we get a little bit more space. When we look at this workflow at a high level, we can see that this pretty much nailed it. So we asked it to create us an email step, a delay, an in-app step, another delay, and then another email step. So now let's go ahead and look at some of these individual steps and dig into how it did. So we'll go ahead and edit this template. Okay, and you can see, boom, that this nailed the copy. We're personalizing this for the particular user. It's added a nice subject line and provided us those links that we want directly to the dashboard. So that looks great. Now let's take a look at our in-app step. Okay, cool. And we can see here that, yep, we're directing them to settings notifications. And if not, that's maybe something we could change. So I do think as you get started with the MCP server, coming in and auditing its result is an important step. So cool. We can see that stuff there. And that looks good to me. So let's go check our email template, our final email template. All right, cool. And we can see it's listed out some of the benefits of Collab.io and then provided a link back to the dashboard. Okay, so that all looks great and is a really great starting point. And you can see how quickly I was able to spin that up by just creating a really detailed product requirement doc from the get-go. Okay, so now that all of this workflow is looking good, we might want to actually test this. So the first step is actually committing these changes to our development environment. So we'll open up this commit diff viewer and just say, initial commit from Cursor. And we can commit those changes to development so that we can use them. Now, Knock comes with this built-in test runner that we might want to use under a lot of different circumstances. But since we're talking about MCP servers in this video, I'm also going to show you some additional tools that are built into that allow you to trigger and test workflows directly from an agent like Cursor. So to do that, we're going to need to pass some additional flags to our MCP server config to expose some workflows as tools. So I'm going to head back out to the docs and then click on the MCP server tab and then head to the workflows as tools heading. Now, what this shows us is the config that we need to expose individual workflows as tools to the MCP server. So we'll need to pass in two additional arguments, the first one being this workflows flag, and then the second one being this list of the workflow keys that we want to expose. So let's head back into Cursor and open up the Cursor settings menu and head to the MCP tools section and then edit our Knock MCP server config. So from here, we'll add our first argument, which is -- workflows. And then the second argument is going to be a list of the keys we want to expose. So this is going to be new user created. Then all we should need to do is save that file and we can close those out. And so now with our workflow committed to our development environment, because we're not using the built-in test runner now, we're calling this via an API call, we can just prompt Cursor to trigger that workflow. So we can say something like, I'd like to trigger the new user created workflow for a single recipient with the ID of 123. And you can pass in a reasonable data payload that contains the dashboard URL property. We'll just take a look at our prompt to make sure that's all good. And then we can go ahead and fire that off. And then Cursor should recognize that we want to trigger this trigger new user created workflow tool. We can open that up to examine what it's going to send to the Knock API, just to double check our recipient and the dashboard URL. Then we can click Run Tool to authorize this. And it should call out to the Knock API. And then if it's successful, return us this workflow run ID, which it did. And now if we hop back into the Knock dashboard, head over to workflows, and then we look at this particular workflow and then workflow runs. If we refresh this, we should see a new workflow run that we just triggered. And here we can see that this trigger completed, the initial postmark step completed, and that we are now delayed because we are processing that 6-hour delay. So awesome. Hopefully that shows you how you can use a variety of the different workflow tools at your disposal that are a part of the Knock MCP server to accelerate your workflow or do some interesting things by exposing individual workflows as tools directly to your agents. Awesome. Workflows are a key part of sending notifications with Knock, and the MCP server can help you go from a well-crafted prompt to a cross-channel notification with just a few tool calls. In this video, we covered the different workflow tools available to you and their limitations. We created a new workflow from a prompt and then used that new workflow in a variety of different ways. Stay tuned for the next video in this series to learn more about building your notification system with the Knock MCP server. Thanks for watching, and knock on.